Now, we have Mitt Romney campaign advisor Kevin Madden. We have Chris Chocola, president and CEO of the Club for Growth. Brad Thor, New York Times best-selling author of Full Black, a Rick Santorum supporter. Brad Thor, thank you for coming on. I want to begin with you. Welcome to the Kudlow Report.
Thank you, Larry.
Look, it's so clear that Mitt Romney is aiming at the evangelicals, I think. I and others were very surprised that he decided to bash John F. Kennedy. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. In fact, I think we have a tape of this. Hang on one second.
Kennedy, for the first time, articulated a vision saying, no, faith is not allowed in the public square. I will keep it separate. Go on and read the speech. I will have nothing to do with faith. I won't consult with people of faith. You bet that makes you throw up.
All right, let me ask you, Brad, that makes you throw up. Now, I know you're for Santorum, and I know you're going to defend him, but do you believe this is the right strategy? Do you believe this is where he should go on the eve of this campaign?
Larry, you follow Rick Santorum around all day long, and guess what? You'll catch him talking about religion. It's important to him. Family and faith is important to him. But if you follow him around all day long, you're also going to hear him talk about economics and what it's going to take to get this country back on its feet. This is a leftist push to paint him as only a social conservative who can only talk on one issue. And Rick is very conversant in economics, and we're seeing that now with his plan, which is very well articulated and makes a lot more sense to the American people than what we're hearing out of the Romney camp.
Chris Chocola, does Santorum's plan make a lot more sense in your judgment? His economic plan, that is, it was posted in today's Wall Street Journal as an op-ed?
His plan is pretty good. What he had in the Wall Street Journal today is a pretty bold agenda for economic growth. We think it is pro-growth. I do like that he didn't mention his kind of exception for manufacturers and trying to pick winners and losers. I don't know if he's dropped that provision or not. But his plan overall is very pro-growth and something we could embrace.
And Kevin Madden, Rick Santorum is blasting your guy, Mitt Romney, because he says, Santorum says that is, that Romney is tinkering around the edges. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think that's the case, and I think voters don't believe that. I mean, many of the voters in Michigan who this week heard Governor Romney talk about a 20% across-the-board tax cut, who heard him talk about what he would do to rein in spending that Rick Santorum was very much involved in over his time as a lifelong politician up in Congress, and as well as the reforms that are needed to entitlements. So you put all three of those together, and what many of the voters of Michigan, as well as voters all across the country, are seeing with Governor Romney is a very strong, bold, pro-growth economic plan, and that's why I think that message is resonating with a lot of these voters.
But nowhere near as much resonance as you guys thought it was going to. You guys thought you were going to spend $30 in 30 minutes in Michigan, and you were going to walk away with it, and that hasn't happened, has it?
Well, I think the campaign that we're running in Michigan is a good one. I think right now the closest of the race is indicative of a very competitive nature of a campaign that we expected was going to be one that was going to be won over the long haul. So look, campaigns are they're tough. This is the part of the campaign where you go out there and you find the most persuadable voters and you try to get them to vote for you. So we're happy that it's a very spirited contest, but it's one that we think will eventually result in a nomination of Governor Romney.
Let me just go, before we bring in our special guest, I want to go back to Chris Chocola. Chris, their tax rates, Romney versus Santorum, the tax rates are very similar, okay? 28%, 25 versus 17.5 on corporations. Okay, Santorum is significantly lower. The manufacturing zero tax rate, though, is opposed by almost every economist I know. But what caught my eye, Chris, let me ask you, from your standpoint, the Club for Growth, free markets, limited government, Santorum says he's going to cut $5 trillion out of the budget in the next 5 years. Romney says he's going to cut $500 billion. Now, $5 trillion in 5 years, Chris, do you believe that? I was a former deputy in the Office of Management and Budget under Reagan. I know a little something about those numbers. I find that number to be incredulous, $5 trillion in 5 years. I think somebody just pasted that into the...
Well, Larry, I think that if you don't state it, you're not going to do it. I think it's a great intent, and I think you ought to try. I think that we have way too much government, we have way too much spending,
but
and
no specifics,
the government.
You were a House member, no specifics. In fact, he had no specifics on entitlements. In other words, I like the goal of slamming down government, okay? And Rick Santorum's got some troubles on that, having voted for No Child Left Behind and having voted for Medicare drugs Part D. But, Chris, I don't see how you get $5 trillion in 5 years. I had lunch with a prominent U.S. senator today. He just giggled over that.
Larry, you know what? Both of these candidates are going to have to exceed our expectations to live up to the promise that they offer and they promise. So I think that bigger is better. If you say you're going to do more and underperform a little bit, it's better than making a small promise. Yeah, I think the problem with Mitt Romney's plan is also pretty good, his economic plan, but the way he presents it's almost apologetic. So I think we need candidates who provide bold solutions, and I don't know if Rick Santorum can get $5 trillion, but it's worth a try.
All right. Brad Thor, I'll give you equal time on that before I go to our special guest. Go ahead, Brad. Look, if you could do $5 trillion in 5 years, I'm all for it. I just don't see how those numbers work, okay? I'd love to see it. I don't know whether he's talking entitlements, non-entitlement. You certainly couldn't take $5 trillion out of the non-discretionary defense.
Larry, if I'm a doctor and somebody comes in and they are morbidly obese, I want them to drop 200 pounds, not 5. 5's a nice place to start, but I want the 200 to come off, so let's shoot for that. Let's make our plan for that.
Brad Thor, I like your spirit. I really like your spirit a lot. You're terrific. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Kevin Madden, Chris Chocola, and Brad Thor. I want to go for a moment to a special